What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The Celestial Compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to Celestial Compass. I'm Kathy Beal, also known as Professional Aquarian of EmpowermentUnlimited.net, and today's guest and topic both fit what's going on astrologically, in addition to being universally interesting and applicable just to life in these times. So, let me put it in the setting of what's going on right now. We are at the beginning of March 2025, which is a milestone month. This month puts us through a really unusual blend of energies that I'm describing in two ways. One of them is that we're riding rapids and there's not a guide at the front of the raft. We haven't been down the river before. We're not quite sure where it's going, and we're navigating on instinct and intuition. And there's fire coming up from the water, or you may choose to look at it as a really bizarre, insane adventure amusement park ride taking us down through water. And by the end of the month, the raft is going to morph into a rocket ship. Yes, I know that sounds insane, but that's what we're in. We're in incredibly confusing and meshing, blending energies at the same time that we have some really, really fiery energies, and specifically involving retrogrades. Venus, the planet that rules our social mode, how we get along, women, what we value, is retrograde for the entire month of March into the middle of April. And in the middle of March, Mercury, the planet of communication, joins her there. Now, you're all familiar with what happens in a Mercury retrograde, and there's some of the same with a Venus. People from the past tend to come back, even if only in our thinking. We revisit past situations, we find maybe we've been confused about something, or how we thought we had an understanding with someone. And then we discover how we were using the same words and a different set of definitions for the words, a different set of assumptions. A Venus retrograde is an excellent time for revisiting things that used to be important to you. And in this instance, it's in the sign of Aries, which is very feisty. It's the fire, power, energy, women on the prowl, people just standing up in a "I'm not going to take it anymore" mode and going back into the battlefield. Um, I'm seeing through the chat that we're having some Mercury retrograde. We're having some retrograde technology issues going on. This is very exciting. So we'll see how this moves forward. Just know that we're revisiting events from the recent past while we're in this completely confused and meshed territory, and know that you might not be being given the complete story, and also that we're being challenged to go our own way and at the same time figure out how we're all going to get along together. And a big part of this involves empowering the feminine, which leads to my guest today, who I'm hoping will be able to come on. Give me 1 second. Could you tell me in the chat, Chris and Louise, am I being heard? And I'm thinking maybe not. Okay. So our guest today is someone who for decades has been empowering women's voices. And her name is Louise Cloutier. She can't hear me at the moment. I'm not sure what to do about this. Hang on. All right. Are you hearing me, Louise? No, I hear you. I hear you just fine. I will continue to introduce you, and then we'll see what happens. She has been helping courageous women speak up since 1981. She's an optimistic feminist with an unquenchable belief that true gender justice is possible in this world, whether or not she lives to see the full fruition of her work. All right. And I'm hearing you doing things, Louise. Can you talk? Can you say anything? Uh, I hear, yeah, I hear you moving around. So, can you say hi? Hello?
Hello. I
Yeah,
can't
I
hear
hear,
anything you're saying. I haven't heard anything you've said since it started. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Hello, Kathy. I'm so glad you are my friend. I
All right,
can't hear anything you're saying.
I'm going to type into the chat. How did you come to coaching? How did this develop in your life? How did you get started? How did you get started coaching?
I don't lip read. I don't know what you're
No, I've
saying.
got it in the I've got it in the chat. In the chat. Look at the chat. How did you come to coaching? No.
How did I get started? This is going to be a very difficult interview. Mercury
Welcome
retrograde,
to
tra la
Magic
la.
Retrograde.
Yes, my goodness. Well, I've been doing my work for, it'll be 44 years come September. And I've been, oh, yeah, Louise can't hear you. Oh, my goodness. Okay, stuff in the chat that is off the subject. Yeah, yeah, I am a gender justice coach. I'm writing a book on feminist negotiations. And I've been using shamanic tools since the mid 1980s with that. So when somebody has a block, a thing, some part of them that's stuck about an issue, whether it's gender-based trauma, whether it's discrimination, whether it's a personal issue, whether it's a work-based issue, whether it's about politics, I have them sound into the part of the body where that's felt, and that brings up a kind of a waking dream with symbolism that's straight out of the collective unconscious. It's like a guided shamanic journey. And that might come up in the form of a color or a phrase or a memory or a scene that they are navigating through. And I feel like I'm talking to myself. It's very strange. but anyway, so so I've been thinking actually a lot about where we're at with current politics, about how that can be really triggering for women, for trauma survivors. Because the bullying that happens, that we've experienced in so many parts of our lives, actually is being played out on a national scale and an international scale. So it's not just a question of being able to shield from that, but being able to process whatever triggers are come up to the surface about it. And I found that when we're no longer carrying that old, soggy laundry, that it's a whole lot easier to deal with current circumstances.
I have a
Sounding
question
into the
for you in
body.
the chat.
So, yes, I'm reading it in the chat. when somebody has an issue, whether physical or emotional, it's not as simple as just a heart chakra issue or a throat chakra issue for speech. It can show up in any part of the body. And anybody who does trauma-informed body work knows that, you know, the body holds the score, holds on to issues that can be very, very specific. So if it's like a cave-in, defeated feeling, if it's a I don't have access to feeling powerful in my hands, or mental issues, or jaw anger issues, that can show up in a whole lot of places. And it's not even as simple as like the Louise Hay kind of dictionary of each body part has a meaning. I take it absolutely from the client. So whatever, sending an ah or a hum into that part of the body, you can actually feel it. It gets warmer. I've, when I first started doing this, if I teach a class and I would have people sound in different parts of their body, we'd have to turn the heat down in the room. People take off their sweaters. Circulation is increased. It relaxes muscles. It opens up issues. It's a great way to do detox. You can rinse off, toxins doing that. But on this more divinatory kind of level, to find answers, sounding into the place where, what comes to mind, I take my lead from them and say, okay, well, I'm feeling it actually in the tops of my shoulders. Okay, let's sound into there. That might be burdens. But it could be the feeling of being pressed down, say, in a traumatic experience. It could be a very specific issue to them. So when they send that, it's not a performative vocalizing, it's not singing, I'm going to send some happy thoughts into that part. No, that actually opens up a different part of your brain. The aesthetic and the judgmental, am I doing it right, kind of part of your brain. But instead, imagining like an inner heating pad, getting that vibrating. And so when the sounding happens in there, they get an answer right away. And it's exactly what they need to face right now. It's exactly what they're ready to face right now, what they have the emotional resources to handle at that point in time. So it's very self-regulating. It's very safe in that regard. So when, one time when I was part of a healing arts fair where everybody did 15-minute sample sessions, somebody came to me and said, I've had backaches and nobody can diagnose what's going on. And so we sounded in there. She went, oh my God, it's about the last time I spoke to my grandmother. I never said goodbye before she passed. Ooh, hug, hug. It was cleared. So it goes right to the issue without having to spend weeks and weeks of, when I was 17, my family moved to New Jersey, la, 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 la. It goes right to exactly what the person's ready to face at that point in time. And it creates a safety, a container for it. So it's exactly what they're ready to. Yes, the body can speak or send a message, what the body is ready to process, what the whole system is ready to process. And because of that, it's very, very individualized. So I've had clients who, I had one client who would generate symbols that would come to mind. And we would look them up and they'd be part of some Sanskrit alphabet or some ancient symbolic, I know. And it would be exactly the meaning she needed to get. I see a certain kind of flower. I would look up that flower essence and the symbolism of that flower is exactly what they need to hear. I once had a client who would go through kind of Feldenkrais. Her shoulder would move a little and her back would need to sink down and her hand needed to turn, and that was exactly what she needed, and it would bring her through whatever realizations, whatever information she needed to hear, whatever healing needed to be done. And the one time somebody sounded into the issue that she presented with, and lo and behold, we saw how she had died in a past life.
Oh my.
Oh yeah, the past life work comes up a lot. Generational trauma, etc. And that happened so soon. I said, well, what are we going to do with the remaining 55 minutes of the session? And I said, how about we rewrite the story of what happened that time? So instead of falling out of the boat and drowning, the townspeople who she hadn't been getting along with showed up, saved her out of the water. She resolved a lot of issues about belonging to community, about feeling like an outcast and not understood. So whatever it is that they need to work on will show up as a narrative or any of those other forms. And it's my job as like a dream interpretation process to help them make sense of it. I have always been interested in symbolism, very much like you are with astrology.
Yeah.
When I was 12, I'd read everything in my hometown library on mythology. So Jung and all the rest of it is very much, that, and many different forms of Chinese medicine, expressive arts therapy. My bookshelves are very, very packed. That and guidance from guides for it. When I first started doing this, in the middle of a session, I would start to look up and go, you want me to do what? Really? Okay. And it would always be exactly right. So I have been working with guides from the beginning, and they continue to be very much a part of my work on multiple levels.
Okay, so I have a question in the chat. Look in the chat.
Empowering women's voices. Well,
yeah.
Because CPTSD, long-standing trauma, gets embodied. Because normalized social injustice gets embodied. Because women don't just have a single bad incident in a gender context. They have the surrounding society saying that that's okay. And I call that aftermath trauma. So that damages our sense of safety in the world. It damages our sense of justice. It damages our sense that the structure will hold. So when women deal with these, I'm going to plug this in so the battery doesn't go. When women deal with, my goodness, there's a lag. Okay, I'll just keep going. When women address these issues that they have experienced not only in their own personal healing journey, but also in how they experience breathing while female. The process of healing these triggers, healing these long-standing multiple experiences of being treated badly because of gender, then that helps women free up to simply step up and be more active in the world. They can, the book I'm writing on feminist negotiations is how to get a raise from a sexist boss, for example, how to get taken seriously in a doctor's office, how to deal with the conversations that can be impeded by sexism and misogyny. And it's not just a question of just do it, the Adidas swoosh. I went through a stack of books on classic negotiation theory, and I added so many annotations that this wouldn't work for women because this is what they should do in that instead. And I realized I'm writing a book because it's an inner issue as well as an outer issue. It's not just about strategy. It's about being able to let go of, say, in salary negotiations, if they think it's not nice to ask for everything they need, then I don't care how many trainings you give them, they'll still ask for less than what they need. So it's healing the previous experiences that have made it difficult for women to get what they deserve. And also being smart to know, okay, if that other person said something that way, then that means they're making a declarative sentence, for example, rather than this is my opinion. They're jumping to an accusation instead of actually staying on the point. So there's lots of those issues about negotiations that show up a lot between men and women, and that undercut women's capacity to speak up. So I'm looking for another question.
Now, we've all had these experiences, and I'm guessing that a lot of what you teach comes from your own experiences. If there
Certainly.
are any you care to talk
come from
about.
my own experiences. Yeah, I do work with my guides on my own experiences as well. I mean, I love to call them my in-house shrink and business coach. They have something to say I do automatic writing, Q&A, and they answer very, very specific questions. And I've not experienced as much discrimination as gender-based trauma, personally.
Okay.
But whenever I experience something that is similar to what my clients are encountering, or what I understand, is happening just in general in gender politics, I process that in a way that is bringing compassionate witness to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a simple either or, forgive yourself for it. It's give yourself a hug for how hard this has been. And from that place, it's a whole lot easier to go deeper into what I call the provocative questions asked permissively. By any chance, are you getting something out of this limitation?
Mm-hmm.
So it's setting up a basket, a lap of comfort and acceptance and welcome that makes it easier to reveal things that perhaps might have been difficult to share.
So does this seem to be coming to a head right now? Or
does this seem to be coming to a head right now? Sexism issues? You mean gender issues?
Yes, gender issues.
I'm actually really intrigued with the fact that the current political situation has not dared to go into gender yet. Because the response to the Dobbs decision raised such a massive upsurge of women standing up to speak and saying, no, this is not going to happen. And even since the election was declared, I want to say just declared a certain way, there's been such a, especially among young feminists, such a leap forward of we're not putting up with this anymore. That is really inspiring. The things that I used to have to hammer home, they already get now. Mm-hmm. And it is magnificent to see. So I find it really, really fascinating that they have not poked that bear yet. Maybe that's not the right analogy. What poked the female embodiment of whatever you want to call it. So I think they're staying away from that because the rise of the divine feminine, folks, we will not put up with it anymore. By the way, you said we wouldn't talk about astrology, but I find it really interesting because I just got my progress chart recently. I've gone from a stellium in Cancer to a stellium in Scorpio, folks. It's like, no way, we're not putting up with this anymore.
Yeah, stay out of Louise's way, everyone.
So, are you asking me something else? I'm watching for the
let's see. Well, we're almost near break. Let's see. The one thing you talk about a lot, Louise and I actually have conversations over the phone about the mushroom field. She talks a lot about the mushroom field.
The mushroom field, the mycelium network.
The mycelium network, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I draw my nourishment not from light over my head, from the stars. I draw it from the planet, from the mycelium network. I happen to live in a wonderful place surrounded with, my goodness, I can see 12 trees just out of my front window. It's a really beautiful neighborhood with lots and lots of trees in Chicago. And when I do an inhale of resources, I draw it from the planet. And I think that is very timely right now, of how, people are talking about the planetary shift, about the consciousness, the Gaia consciousness, as something that's having political implications. I mean, certainly the number of countries that are standing up to support Zelensky right now. There is a global expanding web of people who want to see things go better. So rah to that. I mean, the days of American exceptionalism, we're not the only game in town, folks. So
Not anymore.
I think that's a very good thing.
And with that, we're going to take our break, and we'll see what happens with technology. So hang out, guys. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Om Times TV.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again? empowermentunlimited.net.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. Our guest is Louise Cloutier, who now is off camera. We're having fun with technology. Can you talk, Louise? I'm wondering, can you connect your concept of the mycelium field with what you see happening with women and the feminine right now? And I will see if I can get through to her some other way. So Venus retrograde, I don't know. Maybe there's something else going on. Going to put in the chat for you. So I'm trying to reach her through other means. Louise, you still there? Okay, can you talk? Can you talk? Can you talk? Can we see if we can hear you? But we can't. Okay. And have we now... can you say something? Louise, can you please say something? Thank you for your patience, everyone. I hear you for you up in the chat. Can you answer it? Maybe not. Because I hear you. I hear you moving. Can you please talk?
Hello?
Maybe not. Yes. Here we go. I can hear you. So my question is, can you connect your concept of the
Good, I'm glad you can
mycelium
hear me.
field? Yeah, can you
I
connect
don't
your
know if-
concept of the mycelium field with what you see happening with women and the feminine right now, the rise of the feminine? Can you connect the mycelium field concept that we were talking about before the break with what you see happening with women and the feminine right now?
Well, people speak of the earth as being feminine, but other than being interested in a collaborative, compassionate social justice approach to politics, I'm not sure that it is feminine specifically. Certainly, as women learn to speak up, the power spreads. I mean,
Oops, and now the sound is gone. Well, I am so apologetic to everyone. I have no idea what the technology issue is going on now. And I'm thinking I'm going to need to invite Louise back after we get the technology hammered out. We'll give it a second to see if we can get her back. Not hearing you. Please check sound. And this is an example. This is like exhibit A for how very strange this month is and is going to be. I think so. I'm now answering questions in the chat. So it's a time when circumstances, okay. Circumstances will present themselves one way and there'll be confusion and you're not going to really be sure what's going on or why things are the way they are. And we're going very much on instinct. I said there's no guide, and that we're going on intuition and our own instinct. And at this point, navigating the technology issue is a bit of a challenge since we're doing this through chat while I'm talking with you. No screensaver. All right. No, I'm hearing no sound from her now. Sorry for the dead air. If I could tell you some jokes, I would, but I can't. I'll take this opportunity to let you know that I do have daily forecasts available now for the first time in years, possibly 15. And they're very short. They're less than a minute long. And you can hear them in two places. One of them is at my Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Beal. And the other is if you follow Annette Dion on YouTube, she plays them in her daily Off the Ledge series. So excuse me one second while I deal with this. I think we should stop. Or I can just talk about astrology for the rest of the time. In fact, that's what I'll do. Since you're here, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about what is going on astrologically this month. I had invited Louise to talk to us, and I will bring her back. To talk, she was talking about the power of, or empowering women's voices. She's got decades of experience as a gender coach, a gender justice coach, and that's completely fitting with Venus in Aries, warrior goddess mode, in the sign retrograde from March 1st until April 12th. Venus stationed retrograde right about the spot of the solar eclipse that ends the month at 9 degrees Aries. It's the very last eclipse in a cycle that we've had for the past 2 years that has been resetting how we deal with each other. So it's a Venus ruled eclipse cycle. Well, actually, no, it's a Mars ruled eclipse cycle. We just come off a Mars retrograde. So for the past 2 years, we have been revisiting how we interact with each other and what our ground rules are. And we've been pushed by these eclipses since March of 2023 into acting more on our own for our own purposes and worrying less about what other people are doing. The final eclipse in this comes at the very end of March. The Venus retrograde started at that spot. So we're going over recently traveled territory that's going to play into pick up information for the blast off that's coming at the end of the month. And on March 15th, Mercury stations retrograde at the same spot. So we'll have a Mercury retrograde completely nested within the Venus. This is pretty technical, but if you know what things happen in your life when you're in a Mercury retrograde and technology does whatever it wants. So we've got this double whammy coming for the second half of the month, really putting us through how it's very unpremeditated. It's very intuitive. It's very fast. It's very fiery. It's very feisty. It's hair trigger. You might have experienced yourself being slightly more ready to jump down people's throats the last couple of days. This will intensify in the second half of the month. You might have actually seen some shouting behavior being modeled in the collective as Venus was stationing retrograde. And this is all happening while we have an increasing amount of energy in all connecting Pisces at the very, very end of the zodiac. So we have this bizarre time of being completely immersed in everybody else's stuff and what it all means and what you're picking up and being an empath and going overboard in sensitivity to what is happening with everyone else. Right as we're coming out of being forced to act for our own reasons, to be self-actualized, to be self-motivated, to not worry so much about what's going on with other people. Well, that cycle is wrapping up while we're going over old territory that plays into those issues. We're in this giant petri dish or hot tub or ocean, whatever water image you want to use, having to figure out how all of our lone rangers are going to coexist. So while we're being pressured and forced essentially to be individually determining, self-determining, not so worried about everybody else, and yet we are being soaking in the realization that we are in fact absolutely stuck with each other. Everything that happens to one person affects someone else. And I would expect some major defining collective actions, events occurring by the end of the month that really, really drives this home. You're seeing more and more people being affected by hair trigger actions that are being taken, and the sense of pain and loss spreading actually globally and something will coalesce with all of this. So in your own life right now, look at the immediate point, the Venus retrograde, as a time for you to go back over where you've been, what you've traveled, how you have either stood up for yourself or not, and look for ways to clear up past misunderstandings, ways to say, hey, wait a minute, you're not doing that to me, and stand up for yourself. And whatever this action is going to vary from person to person. For some people, it's going to be making phone calls and telling people off, honestly. For some people, it's going to be screaming at cars in the street. For some people, it's going to be looking up people that used to be important to you, taking the initiative to track them down and find out what's going on with them. I imagine there's a lot of internet searching happening with a lot of this. When we get to the middle of the month, there will be the communication aspect of it will be stronger and stronger, and the probability of ghosts showing up, people from the past, projects from the past, unfinished business, coming across it, figuring out ways you can actually finish things, clear up misunderstandings, get clarity on some things that happened or didn't happen. And it's probable that closure will occur on a personal level, whether you actually make it happen with somebody else out in the world. So you can't force someone to come to you and deal with something, but you can deal with it in yourself. This is not a particularly optimal time at all to start a new relationship or, heaven forbid, get engaged or get married. You might find that things are there's more dusting up going on between you and other people right now in your life. And this will open the door to go back over situations from the past, maybe involving women, maybe involving values, maybe involving things that used to be important to you, and to clear some things up. Sometimes when problems arise in a relationship, they open the door to actually dealing with what is underneath it all. If somebody new shows up in your life, please don't look at it as an imperative from the cosmos to let this person in. It may be more internal exploring of who you are now. And just like that, if somebody crosses your radar that you used to be involved with, or you see them online, or you find yourself thinking about a particular relationship from the past, or if you actually even hear from someone that you used to be involved with, it's not necessarily at all that the point of this is for you to take this person back into your life. The point is to compare who you are now against who you were then and see what is appropriate at this point in your life. And you may figure out that you put up with treatment and situations previously that now there's no way in the world you would accept or even invite in. So that process can bring you closure. You may, and this is also really, really good for going back over old creative projects. Everybody's got something that they started and it's sitting there. I have a table that is covered with partially painted altar boxes. They've been there longer than I want to admit to. I've got a backlog of manuscripts. I've been invited into a book writing group, that kind of writers group, small group. And I now see what I have lying around that it might be a good time to go back, revisit, and figure out what has value out of this? What do I want to put energy into? And what do I want to move into fruition? What do I want to make happen? And you may have something like that floating around in your life. Now, as we get later in the month, almost at the end of the month, the feisty aspects of the retrogrades are going to go into something much softer and much more confusing. Venus and Mercury are both going to work their way out of Aries and go back into Pisces at the end of the month. So as we're ending the month, Neptune will be starting his exit from the sign of Pisces, where he's been since 2011. So you might think back over what in the last 14 years has dissolved about your beliefs, your faith. What have you been the subject of? Have you been experiencing great inspiration, an uptick in your spirituality? Have you been experiencing, as I think many of us have, an increase in being lied to, in gaslighting, in difficulty drawing a line between what is real and what is not real? Have you been dealing with people who have an entirely different concept of facts than you do? And I'd say that's a pretty accurate description of what many of us have been feeling. At the end of the month, the planet that rules our relationships, Venus, will be in the pool with this. The planet that rules how we use our responsibility, planet of adulting, order, structure, will be at the end of Pisces. The North Node, which is the path to the future, will be there. The moon will be there. And Neptune will be there. And Mercury will slide back into it briefly. So there'll be this moment where there's massive, where almost everything in the sky will be in this energy that connects us to everyone and everything. It will be a wonderful time for meditating, for being quiet, for paying attention to your dreams, for acting with empathy and compassion. It will be a challenge to separate yourself from what everybody else is experiencing. So whether you call yourself an empath or not, you'll be really, really soaking up what everyone else is going through. More about that in a second. And it's also a phenomenal time for creating. I encourage you at the end of the March just to set some time aside for being still, for doodling, for going for walks and letting your mind go fallow, for napping, for staring at the clouds, for taking long baths if you are a person who likes baths, and see what comes through to you. Venus is going to meet with Neptune. They're both planets of love and inspiration. And then she's going to sit at a spot in the sky for about a week in April that ties back to April of 2022. So there's some homework for you. There was something that happened in April 2022 that seeded, SEEDED, something having to do with absolute creative inspiration just flowing through you. Very nuanced, nothing. It may be that you'll say, I have no idea what this was. But during this period that we're entering into, by the end of the month and early in April, whatever started floating in your subconscious might float up to consciousness, and there might be something you can now do with it. And when I say creative, I want to spend a moment with this. People sometimes say, I'm not creative. I can't draw. I can't blah, blah, blah. Creativity is just taking a notion, taking an idea and doing something with it. Creative might be making up a new dish in the kitchen or putting things together. It might be telling a story to a small child. It might be doodling. It might be taking photographs of something. It might be setting up an atmosphere in your home. So give yourself some downtime at the end of March to just sit with this all connecting energy and see what you feel the impulse is for you to act on it, to do something with it. And I said I would go back to this notion we're all going to be in everybody else's stuff. So it's really important now more than ever to monitor your intake, to be aware that you are picking up all kinds of who knows what, all kinds of unseen forces from everything around you. And I'm sure you felt good and had a conversation with someone and then suddenly felt awful because you picked something up from them, or you feel fine and you start scrolling through a social media site and then you freak out, or you watch the news and you freak out. The way to deal with this is to periodically step aside, go on an energy diet, recognize that your own energy is a resource and that you have the right to control how you spend it. If you are familiar with the tarot, I encourage you to look at the Four of Pentacles in the tarot as your inspirational image for hanging on to what is yours and mindfully choosing when you're going to spend it. It's also really important to clean your energy out, to clear it out, to dump it, to give people their stuff back, to recharge. I have a free talk, no strings, at my site. If you go to empowermentunlimited.net and go into the shop, there is a free 1-hour talk called Reclaiming Your Energy, and it will not bug you. You just download it. That's it. It is yours. And it talks through a number of techniques for getting yourself back. And if that seems too long and too daunting, if you go to my YouTube channel, Professional Aquarian, I have a playlist called Actions You Can Take. And the 2nd through 6th videos are 5 to 8 minutes long with really quickly addressing different things you can do. So I encourage you to look into, even if you say, oh, I always shield, this is extraordinary. People who, and your normal techniques may not be enough to get through this. So make it a point to step back, give yourself a timeout every now and again, unwind, dump things out, clear, recharge, and that way you'll know what your voice sounds like. That way you'll know when you have the impulse come bubbling up in you, when the fire comes up in you of what it is you want to do on any given day. You'll know that you're operating from your guidance, your own energy, and then you can deal with whatever is going on much, much better. So know that we're all in this ride together. No one's been through it. No one really knows what to do. Take care of yourself first. And if you want detailed information about what's happening, my forecasts for every week, every new and full moon, and every month are at empowermentunlimited.net. They're on the front page. They're also available to my Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/Kathy Beal. They get first access to it. The monthly and the moon casts are at omtimes.com. And I now have very quick daily forecasts that are available at the lowest level at my Patreon, which is the $1 level. So thank you for hanging out. I apologize for this mystery of technology. I will bring Louise back because she has fascinating things to say. I've talked to her about a lot of them over phone calls that did not malfunction. So stay safe, everybody, and stay sane and protect your sanity, protect your energy. And I'll see you again in a couple of weeks.